Hi, this video I'm going to talk about how your diet can actually cause diseases such as coronavirus. For instance, it's pretty well known that the Chinese diet pretty much consists of anything and everything, no discretion. Where I once saw a person there eating the intestines out of a live squirrel, eating reptiles and bottom dwellers of the ocean, just snakes, anything. Not good. And I'm going to be taking the bulk of my information from a book that my dad wrote recently. He died right before it was published, so I actually ended up co-authoring it. It's his dying wish to have this book published, titled "You Can't Spell Jesus in Hebrew." Yeah, get the name right. And other hidden truths about Christianity. James Dobbs, Laura Dobbs Pemberton. It's available on Amazon now. The back cover here. I'll show quickly. It used to be called Christianity: The Great Deception. It's my dad on his motorcycle, Israeli flag. Is it possible, let alone even conceivable, that Christianity was hijacked by Satan, the very devil himself? Could there possibly be some historical basis for such an outlandish thought? Sadly, there is plenty of evidence, though few have examined it as closely as James Dobbs. He spells it all out in no uncertain terms in this seminal examination of the facts. Take a ride through history with this gifted engineer and brilliant self-made biblical scholar. Found out what so many have missed about what could be the most devastating revelation since the New Testament. And what he means by that is, we flip over, just quickly show some of the chapters here, is that, what's in a name? Then this. What's in a name is the first chapter, where my dad actually, he was quite brilliant, came up with a valid theory and started looking into things about how the Bible was seemingly on purpose mistransliterated by the Catholic Church. And instead of going from Hebrew to Latin, which would have been the correct way to transliterate and the easiest, they went this roundabout way: Hebrew, Greek, Latin. And he says even then you don't come up with this letter J, and the letter J in the English dictionary just seemed to come out of nowhere. Why? Was to hide the identity of the people in the Bible, which were Jewish, which the Catholics and many through the history going back to the Roman Empire hate with a passion. And then you go down, and then the bulk of the book is basically a great, wonderful history book. What is a history of Christianity's treatment of the Yehudim? Going over a lot of Nazi Germany and things that were done to the Jews that even I didn't know about. I wasn't certainly taught in school. And then he had a section on the ill treatment of blacks in America. My dad grew up with a maid, and he saw how bad they were treated by the so-called Christians, and the ill treatment of Native Americans by the same group of Catholics, Christian people. I'm part Native American. My mom was Native American, so I added on the sections here that I'm familiar with: Wounded Knee 1 and 2, Pine Ridge, the saga of Leonard Peltier. And if anybody doesn't know the story of Leonard Peltier, I urge you please go to the website www.whoisleonardpeltier.info and read up on that. Chapter on his illegal extradition from Canada, very interesting. The Keystone Pipeline, how the FBI set him up and did nothing but lie. The Indian boarding schools and tribunals, genocide against Native Americans by abducting their children through defects. And I did another chapter on what most people don't know about Homeland Security. Like, I don't know, how they now own the weather and whip up hurricanes, increase hurricanes, and all kind of stuff. Shabbat, which day of the week is Shabbat. And then finally, the chapter that I'm going to be focusing on is diet. Is it a sin to eat food that Yahweh declares unclean? Yahweh being the correct name of the Creator, and not God, not Lord, not, those are all pagan names that have nothing to his actual name is Yahweh, and the Son's name is Yeshua, not Jesus. And as part of the commandments say, salvation is through his name. You're not going to get it through phony name God. Okay. So, that's just a little about the book there. What I'm going to be going over in this video is briefly what the Creator, Yahweh, he had some very detailed instructions about what to eat and what not to eat. I mean, if you just break down what he said, there's no way somebody in that time frame would have known all those kind of details. And then how a scientist that my dad mentions, and there's charts and everything I'm going to show you, proved in 1953 that everything that the Bible says not to eat, being unhealthy and unclean and what to eat, is actually true and held up by science in a table, in a study that he did. That links pretty much when I get through discussing all the diseases and things caused. You can understand why it would be so easy to catch things like coronavirus. Of course, you want to watch my other video that I have, is coronavirus actually an illness from 5G, because that's a whole nother issue, and they could be actually combined, where you've got totally no immunity from 5G, then you're having a diet like this. But anyways, let's get to it. Question. And let's just question. Is it a sin to eat pig meat, ham, pork chops, pork roast, pork sausage, pork hot dogs, pork bacon, pork bologna, pork ribs, pig fat, pig intestines called chitterlings, pig brains, pickled pig feet, pepperoni, pig skins, rare cooked meat, raw meat, blood pudding, horse meat, camel, dog, cat, bear, rat, squirrels, chipmunks, rabbits, carrion, hawks, crow, blackbird pie, vultures, roadkill, catfish, sharks, oysters, shrimp, lobsters, crabs, clams, scallops, alligator, snakes, lizards, chocolate covered ants, roaches. Answer: yes, it is a sin according to the Creator of the universe. And I'm going to start out with proof 1. Proof 1, where the first listing of what we're not to eat is, it is to be a permanent regulation for you through all your generations, wherever you live, that you will eat neither fat nor blood. Now that brings to mind, and gee, I hate to encroach on her revenues, but the Hollywood somewhat famous, I guess she calls herself a vampire, Marina Abramovic, in her Spirit Cooking, where she, well, let's just take a look here. Let's just take a look. You can't make this stuff up. You can't make this stuff up. They start out with here she is, Marina Abramovic. I'm saying her name right here. They pawn and Satan's schemes. She clearly delights in it. I'm not going to show the whole video, but Marina is a creator of spirit cooking, where you eat a mixture of bread. Let's just stop here. She's a creator of spirit cooking, where you eat a mixture of, I can't even really talk about it, breast milk, sperm, and blood, sometimes menstrual, off of somebody laying in a tub of it. And I mean, and I guess that's why they label this in the beginning, warning, this video contains graphic and sensitive info. I mean, this is sick. And then, you know, that combined with, you know, all these little Hollywooders or whoever they are, that elitists that think that they drink blood from a baby and get adrenochrome, extract adrenochrome, they're going to live longer. I mean, what a complete joke. In fact, if you go over, you know, over here to Bohemian Grove, and I just want to say, you know, shout out to all you, you know, Illuminati, I call them Demonatis, Bohemian Grove people. You know, you might want to tune in here, okay? Let's see, this one is set at Bohemian Grove. Whoops. Bohemian Grove. Pull this up. There we go. Huh. I think it was, let's see. Skip over here. Sorry, this is a little bit slow loading here. Oh, the vampire section or whatever it is. Yeah, this right here. Look at this. Look at this. Alex Jones had done this video where he was actually one of the few that actually snuck in and videotaped, because they don't allow videotaping. And at one point, you know, in their cremation of care, you know, it's suspected that they use real bodies to sacrifice. And this one, here he goes.
Burning on the altar. Again, this is what they were handing out to those that were witnessing these macabre activities. But again, from Babylon on...
Well, let's go back.
Now, when you see that black edge coming to the field, that's because we zoomed in on the video, and many times the picture was almost out of the screen, so that's the edge of the field or the view of the camera.
This is in Bohemian Grove, where, now keep in mind, you know, all these men standing in robes, holding this light over sacrificing.
We'll get back to more enhanced video of the ritual here in just a minute, but remember PJ, the little demon down in the corner, the left-hand corner of the program, sweeping up the ashes with little horns? And how can you forget this? The image of a human body burning on the altar. Again, this is what they were handing out to those that were witnessing these macabre activities. But again, from Babylon on into ancient England, the word bone.
And then this one, this one on Bohemian. And here we are with their 40-foot stone owl, where the backdrop of their little sacrifices, and people standing around in robes. And let's see, let's just play part of this. Seeing is believing.
Summer Fire Festival of the Bohemian Club.
Here we go. Now, they don't seem to care if people watch them, as long as no one brings back any proof. As their ritual has only been filmed once by Alex Jones with a hidden camera in the year 2000. Now it doesn't get any more creepier than this. Bohemian Grove, 2000. And there they are, gathered around. Let me remind you folks, these are... I mean, it just sounds satanic. And actually, they have a lot of satanic verses, but I'm not going to play the whole video. Now keep in mind, folks, Bohemian Grove is where a lot of the politicians go to meet every year. These are your politicians at work when you're not looking. Here they are. I mean, if this doesn't beg for question, I don't know what does. Nixon, actually, you can go to YouTube and look up what Nixon said, and I will quote. He said it was the most faggiest place he'd ever been in his life. Only men allowed. Basically, a lot of homosexuality going on there. Blah blah blah.
Year after year within this happy grove, our fellowship ends before space.
Their sacrifice. And proof. Let's go to proof 4. After seeing the owl video. When someone from the community of Israel or one of the foreigners living with you eats any kind of blood, I will set myself against that person who eats blood and cut him off from his people. For the life of a creature is in the blood, and I have given it to you on the altar to make atonement for yourselves. For it is the blood that makes atonement because of the life. This is why I told you, people of Israel, none of you is to eat blood, nor is any foreigner living with you to eat blood. I would take that pretty seriously. And I will move on to proof 3. Now I'm going to get into now that's one thing you're not supposed to eat is blood. Okay, and they seem to think it's such a delicacy. I don't know how they've gotten things twisted so far. Okay, these are the living creatures which you may eat among the land animals. Any that has a separate hoof which is completely divided and chews the cud. These animals you may eat, but you are not to eat those that only chew the cud or only have a separate hoof. For example, the camel. Let's play this in the background. For example, the camel. Then for the sea animals or water, of all the things that live in the water, you may eat these, anything in the water that has fins or scales. These you may eat, but everything in the seas and rivers without both fins and scales, of all the small water creatures and of all the living creatures in the water, it is a detestable thing for you. Whoops. And then for the, I guess, the things that fly, all winged swarming creatures that go on all fours are a detestable thing. Except that of all winged swarming creatures that go on all fours. You may eat those that have jointed legs above their feet, enabling them to jump off the ground. Specifically of these, you may eat the various kinds of locusts, grasshoppers, cicadas, and crickets. Other than that, all winged swarming creatures having 4 feet are a detestable thing for you. Then, whatever goes on its paws among all animals that go on all fours is unclean for you. Whoever touches this carcass will be unclean until evening. And that goes for all the unclean things. And the following are unclean for you among the small creatures that swarm on the ground. The weasel, the mouse, the various kinds of lizards, gecko, land crocodile, skink, sand lizard, chameleon. They are unclean. And, okay. So that's pretty much what, you know, the Creator tells us about what to eat and what not to eat. And he says, for I am Yahweh Elokeh, therefore consecrate yourselves and be Kodesh, for I am Kodesh. And do not defile yourselves with any kind of swarming creature that moves along the ground. For I am Yahweh, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt to be Eloheshka. Therefore you are to be Kodesh, because I am Kodesh. Such then is the law concerning animals, flying creatures, all living creatures that move about the water, and all creatures that swarm on the ground. Its purpose is to distinguish between the unclean and the clean, and between the creatures that may be eaten and those that may not be eaten. Okay. So, I just wanted to also, reading this about Kodesh, it reminded me, Kodesh, it reminded me of something I'd read about in 2014 about this thing called Codex, Kodesh, kind of similar, isn't it? And both have to do with food. Codex Alimentarius. Basically, the more natural health products people use, the fewer drugs they use. Millions are turning to natural health. Big Pharma fears this as it would diminish profits. Codex is designed to protect Big Pharma profits by eliminating natural health products and treatments. Health food stores and wellness companies would be hard hit. And if you want to look more into that, and I thought that was interesting, Kodesh, because I'll just summarize her video here. Dr. Rima Labo on Codex Alimentarius, and right here, she basically says this is how far ahead these people plan. They plan from 1962, an ex-Nazi planned the world trade and wanted it implemented globally by December of 2009. They set up committees. Whoops.
Health, freedom.
That was down. They set up committees on all food groups, except drugs, and came up with like 4,000 guidelines. Codex was actually implemented in 1893, first in Austria. So the German Nazis said, hey, we can do it again. It's run by the UN, World Trade Organization, accepted it in 1994. The World Trade says, hey, if one is Codex compliant and the other isn't, in a court, the Codex country wins automatically. Don't even have to look at the case. It only cares to protect Big Pharma, Big Meds, etc. High potent nutrients would be illegal. Codex allowed 7 previously banned pesticides to be reused. And with the global implementation, it would result in 3 billion deaths, 1 billion via starvation, 2 billion die from previously preventable diseases by nutrition.
And they were sentenced
to
terms in prison if they were found guilty.
It would be illegal to ship like high-density nutritional biscuits to a country during a famine. I just thought that was an interesting side note. Okay. So, now, he says, brief 7. Let me ship over here to. This was a really good video about pig meat, such. Here I am, to a nation not called by my name. I spread out my hands all day long to a rebellious people who live in a way that is not good, who follow their own inclinations, a people who provoke me to my face all the time, sacrificing in gardens and burning incense on bricks. They sit among the graves and spend the night in caverns. They eat pig meat, and their pots hold soup made from disgusting things. For Yahweh will judge all humanity with fire and the sword, and those slain by Yahweh will be many. Those who consecrate and purify themselves in order to enter the gardens, then follow the one who was already there, eating pig meat, reptiles, and rats, will all be destroyed together. says Yahweh.
that mankind consumes.
So
Pigs are commonly associated with eating not only their own feces, but of
I don't think I would
animals
want to
and
mess with
humans.
that.
Parts of the third world, it is the best
Now,
scavenger known that exists in villages that do not have modern toilets.
let's get on to the, now I'm going to move on to the science, to the science part of this and how science backs up Yahweh's instructions. The bottom feeders of the water, such as the shrimp, and the Catholic Christian diet is a swine. I ask you, why is ham the meat of choice for the Christian Easter meal, but lamb is the meat of choice for the Seder meal that Yeshua partook of with his followers just before his death? Doesn't the swine always represent evil and the lamb represents good in the Bible? Yeshua is referred to as Elohim's lamb by Yochanan the Immerser in Yochanan 129. The demons fled into a herd of pigs, not a flock of sheep. Matthew chapter 8.
Alright guys, welcome back to another episode of
I mean, yeah, you know, I mean, the Christian church, you know, they just think, oh, everything's, you know, okay. It's okay to worship on, you know, the Sabbath is Sunday. No, the Sabbath is Saturday, not Sunday. And oh, we can just disregard the Old Testament. We don't need to look at that anymore. It's old. Yeah, it only has like the 10 Commandments. Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think that's gonna cut it. Or you know, have you ever noticed how, you know, these evil people want to desecrate, you know, they want to desecrate, you know, things like the rainbow. You know, the rainbow was a symbol of God's promise or to not flood the earth again. Yet now they want to twist it and make it, oh, it means you're a homosexual. It's just disgusting. And in my dad's opinion, he writes, a pig is a perfect representative or mascot of the Christian religion. Some ask, why did Yahweh make the unclean animals? They were created as scavengers. I mean, as a rule, they are meat-eating or carry-on animals that clean up anything that is left dead in the fields. Scavengers are never intended for human consumption. The flesh of the swine is said by many authorities to be the prime cause of much of our American ill health, causing blood diseases, weakness of the stomach, liver troubles, eczema, consumption, tumors, etc. If we skip over to page 247, you know, it mentions the first consists in that the meat of such animals, like scavengers, is about 10 times more perishable, difficult to preserve than that of the allowed animals. Frequently, people do not realize a piece of meat is already poisonously spoiled until they perceive the toxic symptom have already ingested it. Second reason consists in the scary fact that the byproducts that originate from digesting such scavenger meat are highly poisonous. We're referring specifically to the so-called death enzymes, such as cadaverine and putrescine. These death enzymes are extraordinarily useful in nature. Without their assistance, no flesh would revert to dust. They're extremely useful to break down a corpse, but terribly